Okay, new educators, let me tell you a little story about something that's going to happen to you real soon if it hasn't happened already. It's a bright Monday morning, maybe the second or third week of school. You're driving to work. You stop for coffee first because you actually got up and got ready on time. And when you stop for the coffee, for some reason today it's tasting extra special and extra good. They actually made it right. You arrived at school on time, but today it's a little different. You're a little early. You're excited. You've had a pretty good night's sleep. You make it into the building. You clock in. You get to the main office, and who's waiting for you? But your principal. And not only is she there waiting for you, she's waiting there for you with a smile. And she greets you, with a nice good hello. And then she drops the bomb. I'm going to be in your room today for an observation or a quick visit, as they call it. And not only am I coming, but I'm coming first thing in the morning. First thing.
Oh my God.
But little do you know, I've gotten a call from my boss who's indicated, haven't been to your school in a while. So what am I going to do? I'm coming for an instructional round. And I'm not only am I coming, I'm bringing 2 or 3 colleagues. And we're going to go into rooms. And I think to myself, you know what? This is okay. It's fine. And why is it fine? Because what we have been working on in our building is instructional foundations. One of the first components we started with was making sure students were ready to learn. I talked a little bit about this in the last video about creating a student-centered classroom, and this goes along with it. You need to make sure the students know the behavioral expectations, but also that they know your academic expectations. You have to set the bar high and make sure they understand what you're expecting when you're giving an assignment, what you're expecting around student work, what you're expecting with student discussion and discourse, and what you're expecting for homework or the work that they turn in general. So students being ready to learn is a concept and a component that we took some time and we rolled out with our students so that they were very clear about what was expected of them when we started to implement the actual core instruction. The second component that I worked on with teachers is making sure not only that they establish a student-centered classroom, but also a culture for learning. And I know that kind of sounds the same, but it's a little different because a culture for learning is really from the teacher side. It's making sure that you as a teacher are being your best self when you're establishing a relationship with your students. Meaning that when you are engaging with students and talking to students, that you are using a warm and confident tone with them, that you are not always being super sarcastic with your students. It is very easy because these are younger kids or little people, or we are sarcastic about what they should know from the previous year. So as a leader, I was really conscious of making sure that we were working on our tone and our interaction with students, and then also being very aware of watching that same type of interaction between students, peer to peer. It is very easy for a student to become vulnerable, share out in the classroom, and then if another student or peer laughs or snickers or even goes as far as to call them stupid, sometimes that is it. They will shut down for the year, and it will be very hard to reestablish a connection with that student. So before we jumped in the scope of work and jumped in the curriculum, we wanted to make sure that we establish a culture for learning in our classroom. Another component we worked really hard on is making sure you use clear directions with your students. Being unclear about what you want students to do, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's a movement in the classroom, or whether it's just related to a task or student or work that you want students to do, giving unclear directions makes students unclear and frustrated. And when students are frustrated, it can lead to a teacher being frustrated. It can lead to students lashing out and being disrespectful to teachers. And I've seen this happen where all these behaviors stem from the directions that a teacher gave just not being clear. After giving a clear direction, monitor for it. Make sure you're watching to make sure that students are completing the direction you just gave. When you give a clear direction and then you turn around to get papers, or you go over to do something else in the classroom, you're just not paying attention to making sure that all students have followed the direction, so that when you're ready to jump into the activity, the kids are meeting you exactly where you need them to meet you. So you're giving the clear direction, you're making sure kids are following the direction, and then it doesn't hurt to praise those who are doing what you ask them to do. Most of the kids will do what you ask them to do, but make sure you know, whatever PBIS or whatever point system that you might have going on in your room, praise them. Make sure that you say, Sarah, good job for turning to page 5. I'm going to give you a point. Or thank you, Johnny, for sitting down. Or thank you, student X, for lining up in the line appropriately. Or whatever it is that you ask them to do. Praise them for doing it, because it lifts their self-esteem. Now then you have your couple, or maybe you're one that no matter what you ask them to do, they just doing it slow, just to, you know, it feels like sometimes just to get on your nerves. But even with that student, make sure you're reinforcing what you ask them to do, because sometimes you have a few students that it feels like they try to just get on your nerves, but actually may not have understood the directions, or they're just unclear about the directions. Make sure you're also following up with students to see if they've actually followed the direction. Praise those who did what you asked them to do, and then reinforce and re-give the directions to those who seem like they're moving at it a little slow. Another component that we have been working on that has taken us a little longer in some cases is making sure that the lessons that we're teaching in the class are accurate and they're appropriate. Accurate meaning that we are teaching the grade level content to the appropriate grade. As an educator who has been in the system for a long time, and those of you who might be out there teaching right now, we know that a lot of our students may be a little bit low in proficiency. Sometimes what we'll do is water down the lesson, and when we water down the lesson, we're actually not teaching a grade appropriate lesson, meaning that we are not teaching a grade level standard. And because of this, whenever, you know, someone is making an observation, or whenever we go to make sure our students are mastering grade level content, they're not, because we've watered it down. Additionally, when you are planning, you should be doing the tasks that you're going to ask the students to do to ensure that it's accurate. I have been in rooms where, for as weird as it may sound, it might be a 3rd grade lesson, and we're thinking, of course I'm smarter than a 3rd grader, but some of the content is wrong. Some of the math is wrong. Be sure that you have done the activities and that you have done them correctly, so that when you are giving this lesson, when your principal is in the room, it is accurate. You are giving the right information. We spent a good chunk of time making sure that as an instructional foundation, preparedness was what we worked on, because we know that if you are not prepared, kids will take advantage of you not being prepared. And not only will take advantage, they know when you're not prepared. There is nothing like a day of you not being prepared and your principal coming in to do an observation, or as a principal, this is particularly the day that my boss decides to show up and we go into a room and your copies aren't made, you're all over the place, the kids don't know what you're doing, and trust me, this will be the time where someone raises their hand as you're talking and they say, we did this before, or we never did this before. Kids will tell on you. They will tell on you. And or I will, of course, sit next to the kid who you feel like never knows what's going on. And when we ask, or when a colleague of mine comes in and asks, what are we doing? What are they going to say? Of course they're going to say, I don't know. Because sometimes that's what happens when we have not prepared our lessons properly. So taking this time to really establish instructional foundations in my classrooms prior to jumping into the scope and sequence of curriculum made me all the more secure when I got that email from my boss saying that they were coming in to see instruction in classrooms. I knew my teachers had taken the time to work on instructional foundations, and I had set the goal in my building for 100% of teachers having met the criteria for instructional foundations in their classroom. If you want to find out about how I set the goal for instructional foundations for my teachers, and then how I set additional goals and action steps for teachers after they have met IFs, please watch that video on my YouTube channel. If you are an educator or leader who has experienced this very scenario, I would love for you to go ahead and leave a comment below, because I would love to go back and forth and have a conversation with you about this happening. Again, please share this information with any educator or leaders that you know. I'm sure they would enjoy this content. And then if you want to add a comment about additional content that you want to see, please go ahead and put that in the comments as well. Please go ahead and follow me on Distinguished ED on both Instagram and Facebook. I post there daily. Go ahead and like, share that information as well. Comment there as well. I'd love to have conversations with you. Please look forward to some more lives that are coming. And again, thank you for becoming distinguished.